I recently made a video about the best new build neighborhoods in Salina, and several of the video comments asked me to do the same thing for McKinney. And I was thinking, yeah, let's do that. Because here's the thing, if you're thinking about McKinney, you need to know the costs, the commute, the schools can all vary in a huge way depending on where you buy. Like take the schools for example. You have McKinney ISD, which isn't ranked as highly, but you also have choices like Prosper, Melissa, and Frisco, which are all very highly rated. So you need the information to make a solid choice. Now, I get that you probably thought this video was gonna be all about seeing the neighborhoods and amenities, and we will. We'll see plenty of that, but I really want to focus in on the financial differences too. We're talking about the actual monthly cost of the property taxes, the MUDs, the PIDs, the HOAs, and what amenities you're going to get for that price, as well as where you can get the absolute highest rated schools and a whole lot more than that. Now, Painted Tree is very popular in McKinney right now, so that's where we're gonna start. So first of all, where are you gonna find it? Well, you're going to be north of 380 and west of 75. So we're talking about the north side of McKinney. You're only around 5 minutes from your nearest Chick-fil-A and around 10 minutes to Walmart. So not out in the middle of nowhere by any means. Now, Painted Tree is huge, and it kind of depends on which part you're coming from, but overall, it is not situated the best for highway access. Like you're probably going to end up going south on Lake Forest Drive and then going on 380 to get to your closest highway, which is gonna be around a 12-minute trek to 75. And one thing you need to be aware of is you need to have respect for the congestion you can run into on 380. And that's a big part of highway access with Painted Tree. If you're commuting to downtown Dallas, you're looking at 37 miles and roughly a 55-minute commute. So something to think about, okay? In Dallas, where highways really get you everywhere, like ideally you don't want, like a 10+ minute drive to get to the closest highway. So from that perspective, Painted Tree is not ideal. That being said, the community itself is huge, over 1,100 acres with a ton to offer. But let's talk about, okay, your best news of the day. You ready for this? It doesn't have a MUD or PID, and the property taxes and HOA on a $600,000 house are only going to run you $975 a month. Now, if you're not used to Texas property taxes, okay, that may not sound like a bargain, all right? But as we go through these communities, you're going to see it is our second lowest priced one. So with it being, okay, at that lower price, what kind of amenities can you expect? Well, if you're expecting that the lower price probably means less amenities, you'd be wrong, okay? Because they went all in. Think national park vibes. Plus they've got hangout places, a food truck court, an outdoor adventure park, playground, 2 trailheads. The lakeside trailhead has a resort style pool with a sun shelf and water feature, plus plans are in the works for an open air pool house. There's also a fire pit and even a pump track if you're into biking. The community centerpiece is Painted Tree Lake. Oh, and get this, they even describe having a community park ranger who plans resident-only events. So if you're someone who actually wants to feel like part of like a super involved neighborhood, not just like living next to people, this is one to seriously consider. School-wise, it's in McKinney ISD. The district overall breaks down like this. 48% of students are scoring above average, 28% are average, and 24% fall below average. Now, if you're looking at specific campuses, McClure Elementary scores a 6 out of 10. Cockrell Middle School comes in at 9 out of 10, and Boyd High School lands a 7 out of 10. So the school ratings are decent, all right, with your best one being for the middle school. Something I like about Painted Tree is there are 10 builders in the community, so you're not gonna be stuck between choosing just like between like 2 or 3 choices. And with that is gonna come pricing variety too. So you can start in the low 300s for a townhome and go all the way up to just over $1 million. Southgate Homes tops the chart at around $1,056,000. So far, we have the second lowest taxes in HOA, amazing amenities, decent schools, and great builder and pricing diversity. So one thing I didn't expect is low Google reviews. So if you look them up on Google, most of them range from like 2.8 stars up to a single 5-star review. But the majority, okay, the majority of reviews are sitting somewhere in like the 3s or low 4s. So those kinds of reviews have to make you wonder, like, what is going on? Because everything sounds fabulous. Well, if you read through their reviews, okay, and I highly recommend that you do, you'll see a decent amount of reviews raving about how wonderful the sales consultants were and how beautiful the home is. But then you'll have a lot of reviews stating the exact opposite. Now, one thing I always try to look out for in reviews is warranty issues. And I only saw one poor review about warranty. So despite Painted Tree not having the best reviews, I wouldn't necessarily recommend deciding against it completely because of that. But I do definitely recommend that you read those reviews, especially about whatever builder you're considering. All right, next up, Trinity Falls. And I've put these two back to back for a reason. All right, they're both massive. They have some fantastic amenities. I like their emphasis on incorporating plenty of nature and green space, but they also have one massive difference that is going to blow your mind. But let's talk about location first. Trinity Falls is farther north than Painted Tree. So if you're wondering how convenient this place is for things like retail, restaurants, all of that, you're looking at about 6 miles to places like Chick-fil-A and Walmart. It's probably going to take you close to 10 minutes, but still that's not bad for running errands or grabbing takeout. Now, as for highway access, all right, you're 2.5 miles from 75. And if you work in downtown Dallas, it's gonna be about 44 miles. So like roughly a 50-minute drive depending on traffic. Now, comparing this to Painted Tree, you are around 7 miles further north, but your commute is about the same because Trinity Falls is closer to 75 and you don't have to navigate 380 to get there. The community is not a small one. In fact, it's actually bigger than Painted Tree at over 2,000 acres. But here's your big difference that you need to be aware of. It is way more expensive to live here. Trinity Falls has a MUD, right? 2 actually. MUD 1 will run you $497 a month, and MUD 2 is going to run you $525. And of course, you also have to consider your property taxes and your HOA fees. So overall, living at Trinity Falls in a $600,000 house will cost you an additional $1,300 to $1,328 every month, on top of your mortgage and insurance. So think back to Painted Tree, okay, where we saw it was $975 a month. You're talking a difference of $325 a month for the same priced house between the two communities. So to me, that's just mind-boggling. So let's talk about amenities. What are you getting for that price? Well, you have a beach entry pool, splash pad for the kids, grilling stations, a hike track, dog park, multiple playgrounds. They have preserved a lot of natural wooded areas. And overall, the community is designed to encourage outdoor living. Still, it's pretty comparable to Painted Tree, which is like $325 less a month. Trinity Falls is also zoned to McKinney ISD. Again, the district's students are about 48% above average, 28% average, and then like 24% below. The local campuses are different from Painted Tree though. Your closest elementary school, Ruth and Harold Fraser Elementary, is rated a 9 out of 10, so that's better. The middle school, Scott Morgan Johnson Middle School, is 7 out of 10, and then your high school, McKinney North, is an 8 out of 10. So once again, we have decently good ratings. Builder diversity is another point for Trinity Falls. You'll see homes from 7 different builders here, and multiple builder options means a lot of choices for buyers, and I like that. Same story with pricing. Okay, it's varied. You've got townhomes starting at $359,000, single family homes from $447,000, and some homes pushing up into the $1.3 million range. But it is worth noting, both with Painted Tree and Trinity Falls, the pricing and builder diversity is excellent, but okay, with as massive as they are, the layout keeps things pretty separated. Like townhomes are grouped together, 40-foot lots are gonna be on their own area, okay, that kind of thing. Checking out Trinity Falls Google reviews, the community has almost all mid to high 4-star ratings, with just one builder coming in pretty low at a 2.6. We're gonna see as we go through these communities that our happiest buyers and our highest ratings are clustered in Trinity Falls. Moving on, let's talk about Willowwood Classic. Classic. We're gonna find it further east than Painted Tree and Trinity Falls on the east side of 75, but still on the north side of 380. You're only about 5 miles from major retail and dining. We're talking like Chick-fil-A, Walmart, and Target, and you're even closer to major highways. The community is actually just 1.5 miles from 75 and 6 miles from 380. Since Dallas is right down 75, this is decent news for any commuters out there. It's still 45 miles, or about a 55-minute drive to downtown Dallas. After the massive Painted Tree and then Trinity Falls, Willowwood definitely has a different feel. The whole neighborhood is just 306 acres. And good news, okay, you'll be glad to hear it's not in a PID or a MUD. And you may think all that means a lower monthly payment, but the cost of property taxes and HOA fees in a $600,000 house lands right around $1,005 every month. That's definitely less than what we saw in Trinity Falls, but still higher than Painted Tree. Now let's talk about amenities, all right? Because you're probably wondering what you're paying $1,000 plus every month for, right? Well, they're pretty basic, but they do check like all of the major amenity boxes. The community offers a swimming pool with a splash park, a community pavilion, sports courts, a playground, and of course some nature trails and green belts. So nothing over the top, okay? Nothing breathtaking, but it does provide like a decent amount of amenities. Now, schools, okay? These are definitely something this community has going for it, all right? Willowwood is actually in Melissa ISD, which has, absolutely great ratings. 100% of students score above average. The schools closest to Willowwood have excellent ratings. Willowwood Elementary is a 10 out of 10. Melissa Ridge Middle School is an 8 out of 10, and then Melissa High School is also 8 out of 10. So of all the communities we're reviewing, our smaller Willowwood has the absolute highest rated school package. On the other hand, builder diversity is a total letdown here. The only builder at Willowwood Classic is Bloomfield. And I will say that the pricing diversity is decent, okay, for only having one builder. You'll find homes starting in the $550,000 range, topping out somewhere around $820,000. The community's reviews are decent as well, with 4.3 stars and 40 total reviews. When I was looking at the negative reviews, I noticed most are over a year old or even up to like 5 years old. So with those older ratings, like I saw several reviews about poor customer service, like with one specific manager, and just one that mentioned issues with the house itself. I hope you can see Willowwood has quite a different vibe than Painted Tree and Trinity Falls. All right, it's smaller, less grandiose, okay, but man, does it have the school ratings. Our next stop is at Irwin Farms. We're gonna go back across 75 and find it between Painted Tree to the south and Trinity Falls to the north. All right, still fairly close to some major grocery stores, like you'll have a Walmart, a Target, a Sam's Club, a Kroger, just like 2.6 miles away. So you've got options. The neighborhood, 2.5 miles from both 75 and 380, and it has the second shortest commute to downtown Dallas at around 37 miles or about 45 minutes. Irwin Farms is even smaller than Willowwood at just 187 acres. So we have gone from the massive 2,000 acres in Trinity Falls down to more of like a boutique community with 187 acres. All right, so let's go ahead and see what you'd be paying to live in a $600,000 house at Irwin Farms. There is no PID or MUD, so that's your good news, but your property taxes and HOA combined have you paying around $1,025 a month. So it's no bargain, all right, but do the other factors make up for it? Well, let's talk about amenities. Most are what you'd expect of any other new construction community. All right, we're talking a community center, playground, pool and splash pad. Nothing really over the top here. Now, what really makes Irwin Farms stand out is its proximity to Irwin Park. You're talking a visual feast of 212 acres of wooded areas, hiking and biking trails, picnic shelters, playgrounds, and campfires. You also have the Oak Hollow Golf Course really close, which is gonna have like a clubhouse, restaurant, and pro shop. You have to keep in mind though that both of these are not specific to the Irwin Farms community. And what I mean by that is Irwin Park is a city park, so it's open to the public, where like for example, Painted Tree and Trinity Falls have all the bells and whistles exclusive to their community, and it's part of what you're paying for. Now let's talk about schools for just a minute. Irwin Farms is zoned to McKinney ISD, so in case you forgot, okay, here's our district statistics. 48% of students score above average, 28% average, and 24% below average. Bennett is your elementary school, rated a 6 out of 10. Dowell is the middle school, rated 7 out of 10, and then McKinney North is the nearest high school, also rated 7 out of 10. Your school ratings here are fairly middle of the road. Of the communities that we're comparing, I mean, I would honestly put them in last place. And again, they're not terrible, but they're not the best you can get either. Irwin Farms falls short when it comes to builder diversity too. There are just two options for buyers there, okay? Pulte Homes and Wyatt James. And to make matters worse, okay, there's very little pricing diversity between the two builders also. Pulte dominates almost all of the listings at Irwin Farms, and their prices are almost entirely in the $600,000 range. Wyatt James, as a builder, has only a few listings that are in the $800,000 range. Google reviews aren't too bad, okay, but they're not 5 stars either. Pulte has 47 reviews and a total rating of 4.3 stars, and Wyatt James at Irwin Farms doesn't have any reviews at all. The Pulte complaints are all over the map, ranging from construction quality issues to frustrating experiences with sales consultants, and then concerns about inflated pricing. So Irwin Farms, you're basically only getting Pulte as your main builder. The school ratings aren't exciting, and you pay more for your taxes and HOA than you do at Painted Tree for a whole lot less in amenities. So just not a whole lot to get excited about with Irwin Farms. Now let's take a look at Highland Lakes, starting with location. It's also a neighbor to Painted Tree on that northwest corner of McKinney. You're about 6 miles from the same retail and dining spot with the Walmart, Target, Kroger, Sam's Club. When it comes to highway access, you're probably going to take Bloomdale Road to Lake Forest Drive, where you're going to end up on 380 in order to get to either 75 or the tollway. You're about 2.5 miles from Highway 380 and about 6 miles from 75. So you got a couple of options there, but you're probably further from 75 than what's going to be truly convenient for a commuter. Speaking of which, the drive to downtown Dallas is about 42 miles, so expect roughly a 50-minute drive. As for the size of the community, Highland Lakes spans 450 acres and is planned for 1,376 homes. So this is a decent mid-sized neighborhood, okay? Not too small, not too overwhelming. We're talking roughly the same size as what we saw with Willowwood. Now let's talk about taxes and monthly expenses. Highland Lakes is not in a PID or MUD, and the combined taxes and HOA for a $600,000 home are gonna run you about $1,004 per month. When it comes to amenities, Highland Lakes has a pretty nice lineup. There's a community lake, walking trails, resort-style pool, playground, clubhouse, fitness center, and a mix of hiking and biking trails. So definitely geared toward outdoor activity and relaxation. Moving on to schools. Highland Lakes is in Prosper ISD, which has a stellar reputation. According to the data, 95% of students in the district score above average, and 5% are average, none score below average. For specific schools, the elementary campus is Mike and Janie Reeves, rated 7 out of 10. Lorraine Rogers, middle school, gets an 8, and Walnut Grove High School is rated a 7. So overall, you're coming from a highly acclaimed school district, but no 10 out of 10 ratings like we'd like to see. Something to consider here is that buying a home in a highly acclaimed school district can actually be a great investment strategy as well. The interesting thing is that Melissa ISD actually rates higher than Prosper ISD, but Prosper ISD is more popular, it's more highly acclaimed. So Highland Lakes has that going for it. Builder diversity, not so much. It's just Pulte and Taylor Morrison building here, so your design and floor plan options will be more limited compared to some other communities. Now, as for pricing, the homes fall into the $572,000 to like $840,000 range. And from what we can see, okay, both builders are still offering a decent amount of inventory, but there's definitely not a lot of diversity. Okay, let's look at builder reviews. Pulte at Highland Lakes has a 3.4 star rating from 11 reviews, and Taylor Morrison comes in just a bit lower at 3.3 stars from 10 reviews. So neither are what you want to see. Now, most of the complaints are going to have like both builders focusing on how buyers feel the homes are overpriced. They mention a lot of hidden costs coming up in the design center and that the builders don't communicate or negotiate well with them. So with Highland Lakes, we go from being super excited about the school district, right, to some seriously unimpressive Google reviews. Next up, let's talk about Aster Park. Now, from Highland Lakes, we're going to go north and slightly west to get there. The community is about 6 miles from the same major retailers, so getting groceries or grabbing a quick dinner isn't going to be like a real hassle. In terms of highway access, you're probably going to take Land Howell Parkway either to Custer Road or Lake Forest, depending on which highway you want. Aster Park is the furthest west of our community. So if you wanted Dallas North Tollway to be your highway of choice, you could easily do that. Whereas with your other communities, 75 was definitely your closer choice. Either way, if you're commuting to downtown Dallas, plan around like 50 minutes. Okay, it's gonna be roughly like 43 miles out. The neighborhood covers about 414 acres, so it's on the smaller side compared to some of the master plan giants, right? But it's roughly the size of what we saw like with Willowwood and Highland Lakes. Now let's talk monthly costs, all right? This one is not in a PID or MED, which is great news if you're trying to avoid surprise tax bills. Now on a $600,000 house, your combined property taxes and HOA come out to about $1,088 a month. So pretty much on par with what we're seeing for new construction communities in McKinney. The amenities in Aster Park lean more boutique and design focused. So this is going to be your higher end of the communities we've discussed so far. I mean, Painted Tree and Trinity Falls, they had $1 million homes, but they also had $300,000 townhomes. Well, Aster Park isn't like that. Okay, it's a little more elite. It's gonna be more affluent. You have a gated entry, an event lawn, terraced game area, fire pit, and even a boardwalk. There's also a community pool, open terraced fields for play, and 15 acres of walking trails. They're shooting for a more, I guess you say, like modern sort of nature integrated environment, less cookie cutter, more curated, if that makes sense. School-wise, Aster Park is in Prosper ISD. Again, this is one of Texas's highest rated school districts. 95% of students in the district are scoring above average. 5% are average and none are below average. So that's something to keep in mind when you're considering Aster Park for sure. The elementary school tied to Aster Park is actually stronger than your nearby Highland Lakes as well. Sam Johnson Elementary is rated 9 out of 10. Lorraine Rogers Middle School gets an 8, and then Walnut Grove High School is a 7. Builder diversity is also a big win for Aster Park. You've got 6 different builders to choose from here, and that gives you, as a buyer, a ton of variety when it comes to floor plans, architecture, and price points. And speaking of prices, okay, homes range from about like $560,000 all the way up to like 1.2 million. So you have some good price diversity, but definitely leaning towards that higher end. And finally, let's check out those builder reviews. 2 out of the 6 builders at Aster Park have 5-star reviews, although one is only based on like a single review. 3 are in the mid 4-star range, with the lowest being 4.3 stars. And then one builder, Toll Brothers at Aster Park, they don't have any reviews yet. When looking for negative reviews here, I only saw one low rating that actually had like a written review along with it. And their complaint was too much hype. So not being able to find any like enraged reviews about a community, that's always a good sign in my book. So overall, Aster Park, all right, it's shaping up to be a strong option. If you wanted Prosper ISD, and nothing but Prosper ISD. To me, between Aster Park and Highland Lakes, all right, I would definitely go with Aster Park. All right, next up is Estates at Stacy Crossing, and this is where we're gonna have our commuters win. All right, from Aster Park, we are headed a full 20 minutes south past 380 and pretty close to the Sam Rayburn Toll Road. Location-wise, this one may be the most convenient spot since it's so much further south. I mean, you've got, again, your Chick-fil-A, your Lowe's, your Walmart, your Target, all the usual go-tos just like the others, and they're about 3 miles away. But you're also right next to Allen and all that it has to offer. In fact, it's less than 15 minutes from the Waters Creek Village Shopping Center. Highway access is also decent. You're only 2 minutes from the Sam Rayburn Toll Road. And if you're commuting into downtown Dallas, you're looking at about 30 miles, all right, give or take. And the shortest commute time we've seen so far, probably around 40 minutes, depending on what time you hit the road. Now let's talk about our monthly costs. On a $600,000 house, monthly property taxes and HOA will run you around $929 a month. So that is the lowest we have seen of all 7 communities. As far as schools go, this community is zoned to Frisco ISD, which is usually a big check mark for buyers. Their numbers are strong. 85% of these students are scoring above average, and the other 15% are average. Nothing rated below average, which is great. Looking at the individual schools, Elliott Elementary is a 9 out of 10. Wortham Middle also comes in at a 9 out of 10, and Emerson High School, a little bit lower, coming in at a 6 out of 10. I think it's really interesting that with 7 total communities, we've tapped into 4 different school districts, with McKinney ISD actually being the lowest rated one. So with new construction in McKinney, all right, you definitely have multiple options. Amenities-wise, it's more of a low-key setup. All right, you've got a picnic area, event lawn, playground, some nice green space. Not flashy, all right, but it does work for like casual outdoor time. One thing to know though, Normandy Homes is the only builder in this neighborhood. So if you were hoping to have options or compare different styles or incentives, that's not really happening here. Price-wise, homes range from about $704,000 to $866,000, so not a whole lot of diversity there either. Normandy at Estates at Stacy Crossing has a 4.5-star rating on Google, but it's based on just 8 reviews, so it's a small sample size, so kind of keep that in mind. I only saw one complaint, and it stated that Normandy had increased the price for north-facing homes in particular. At Stacy Crossing, all right, you're not going to get the bells and whistles amenities, nor are you going to get a whole lot in the way of builder choices. But you do have a shortened commute, all right? You're within Frisco ISD and the lowest property tax and HOA fees. So if it is all about the commute for you, all right, this is definitely one to keep in mind. So we have ridiculously high MUD fees in one, decent-ish rated schools and a few others. I would say we've definitely pulled back the curtain here, okay? So if that kind of intel matters to you, all right, don't stop here. We've got a whole playlist breaking down the best versus worst all across Dallas. You can check it out right here, and I'll see you there.